you'll have people, and most of the time when I've done the class, the people who are taking the class, they're not particularly ill. Sometimes somebody I'm seeing in the office and they're having some problem, but they're people just interested in playing with eating better and how does that feel. So they're not having a lot of major medical problems, but when they score themselves in this questionnaire, the higher the score, the more things you're reporting problems with. And they'll score 60, 70, 80, 120, really high scores, and after just 6 weeks of eating differently, they're down to like 14, 18, 24, huge drops in terms of the things. And I don't let them keep the first questionnaire. I don't want them to be cheating. And so they answer it as best they can, and you see just huge changes in their health score just by changing what they put in their mouth for 6 weeks. And the other thing I didn't mention as I was going around, but a couple of people have said, they lost, people made changes in what they chose to eat. They lost weight, weren't paying any attention to calories or any other thing, and that's what I've seen for years, is that weight loss is all about what you eat, not how much. This happens often enough. I'll just say I had a man I was seeing, actually I was seeing his wife more, but he was a businessman and was having a few minor problems. His wife kind of pushed him, quit pretending like there's nothing wrong, go in, get checked out. So we met briefly, and I proposed a number of things to him, and he goes, look, honestly, I'm not going to do a lot of this, but one of the things I proposed, because he tested really negatively to milk, is to give up dairy. And he goes, I don't really care about dairy, I'm not that big on cheese, and I can do that, I can give that up. And so he was going away for the whole summer, and he came back 3 months later, and he'd lost 25 pounds. And he wasn't particularly overweight, but now he looked really trim, his skin color was better, his energy was better, and the only thing he'd done was drop dairy, 100%. And it made a huge difference in his health and things like that. So, so these things with foods are really important, and that's why I chose that as a topic today. And just to go back to the autoimmune thing, I don't want you to think that these foods are causal. You didn't get Sjogren's because of wheat. And in fact, let's do that real quickly here. If we, this is just a little graph, and this is just so this is just the amount of reaction going up this way, and this is just time down here. And if you kind of look at the things that can upset our immune system or our functioning, things that cause an immune reaction, which means essentially translates into an inflammatory reaction. So foods definitely can cause an immune reaction. And we'll talk more about, part 2 of this talk is about the science of these things, so I'll kind of go over a little of just how these reactions work. Toxins, heavy metals, we live in a very toxic world. Those cause an immune reaction. Infections, and dysbiosis, I'm going to say. So infections could be something as seemingly benign as just gingivitis. You've got chronic inflammation in your gums. Dysbiosis is more common. You just have a disordered population of bugs in your gut, and sometimes something as simple as a probiotic will begin to make that normal. Sometimes you have to do more. You mentioned candida. That's kind of a kind of dysbiosis. Emotional toxicity, and this is I don't mean just stress. It's not just a stress from your job, stress from your family. I'm talking more Gilbert-Renault, recall healing, the kinds of things that some people here have been involved in. Just the way that the story of your life settles into your body. And so if you had a miserable childhood and you're still on fire about that, and you're still angry and resentful, and you're pissed at your parents and they've been dead for 20 years. I mean, they've been in the ground for 20 years and you're still walking around angry at them. That's what I'm talking about in terms of emotional toxicity. That kind of smoldering toxicity, that emotional toxicity, it plays havoc with your body, your health, your immune system. It's corrosive. And so, one of the reasons why, so interested in things like recall healing is it is one way to kind of shift that, do that. Also the Ho'oponopono, which Gilbert is also, but that's another talk. And then just environmental. So, you've got mold in your home, or you're allergic to pollens or cats or dust mites or whatever. These are the hardest ones to deal with. But this is sort of then a threshold up here. And so it's the sum, the combination of all of these things builds on itself, and eventually you reach a point where you're eating enough foods that your body doesn't like, you've got enough toxicity, enough dysbiosis, on and on, until finally you cross the threshold and now you have symptoms. And it's not to say that any one of these things caused the problem. So when when there's a bunch of pollen in the air and suddenly you're having all kinds of sinus problems and things like that, it's never just the pollens. A lot of these things have put you right at this threshold, and along comes one more thing, and now you're symptomatic. And so what do? What's the solution? Well, you can pull back from eating foods that your body's sensitive to. You can do some things to detoxify yourself. You can deal with the health of your gut and any chronic infections that are going on. You can deal with the emotional toxicity. You can clean up your environment as best you can. And all of these things sort of pull you back from the threshold. And now you're not symptomatic anymore. And so that, thank you for sharing what you'd gone through. So that's, it isn't that the foods caused the inflammation, or the foods caused the immune problem, but foods, of everything on this list, foods is something you have 100% of control over. You have 100% of control over what you put in your mouth. I know it's hard sometimes, but you have that control. You don't have control of what's in the water and the air and the food chain. You don't have as much control over all of these things that are just so deeply buried in your psyche and your very bones. They can be moved, but it's not something you can do. But you can change today what you put in your mouth, and it can have a huge effect, a huge effect. And so it's a little hard, but I'm asking you to just be clear that I'm not trying to say that foods are causal, but it is a remedy available to you that is very powerful, and one that you can play with. And it's easy and simple and cheap in the sense that if you choose this food over that food, that doesn't cost you any more money. It's just a choice. It's the choices you make. So let's stop with that. So I wanted to, that's kind of the end of the first part of this, but any questions before we move into the second part of this? Yes?
Detoxification. Lots of people sell a lot of things to detoxify your liver and your kidneys and your everything. Mm-hmm. Do they work?
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, a lot of those things work, but sometimes, one of the things, just going back again to, for 17 years now, we've been doing these courses on healthy eating. And one of the things that we see over and over and over again, or if I'm working with someone and I suggest to them, for you to get better, we need to work with what you're eating, that if you say that you have a big problem with gluten, because gluten, wheat, those are very common. A lot of people have problems with that, and we're going to be talking in a little bit. Wheat's become a problem far beyond just celiac disease. Right. But if you have a problem, say, with wheat or gluten, and you suddenly completely eliminate it from your diet, a couple of things happen. One is that your body, which has been sort of a little annoyed at having to spend so much energy to deal with this food for so many decades, one thing that happens is that if you do that for a time, and I forget who it was who said it, but when you go off, you give up wheat and gluten and things like that 100% for 6 or 8 weeks, and then you come back to it, It's as though your body has just become very unforgiving. It's going, for decades, I have helped you out with these foods that I wished you were never eating to begin with, but I'm not going to help you anymore. And so suddenly you just have a huge reaction. I mean, I'm talking huge reaction sometimes. I've had people end up in the emergency room where they were, they've been really good about their diet, and they go to a party or they do something and they inadvertently or decide, oh, it won't matter this once. And they get so sick that they can't believe that it's just because they ate some wheat. Yeah. And they think their gallbladder's having a problem, or they got kidney stones, or, I mean, they're in so much pain and discomfort, they're really worried. They go into the emergency room, they do all kinds of tests, and $10,000 later, the doctor's scratching his head and go, I can't find anything wrong. I don't know why you're having all this discomfort. And then, I talk with them, and they go, I was in the hospital this weekend. And, well, what, anything changed? Did you go off your diet or anything like that? Well, I had a little bit of, tempeh or something, or sushi, or some kind of fried thing, or something with a little wheat in it, not even a whole lot. And I will do it. But the other part, you had asked about toxicity. So if your body suddenly has all these resources freed up, that it's been using all of its ability to deal with toxic stuff, simply dealing with what you put in your mouth every day, and now it doesn't have to do that, it initiates in many people a very significant detox reaction, meaning they start dumping other toxins. And so one of the things that I've become much more proactive about when I'm working with people when they're changing their diets is to let them know up front that that's going to happen. If I really think it's a likelihood, even starting them on some detox remedies when they start the change in their diet, so that they don't become just really sick and miserable simply because they changed their diet. So that, and the reason I say all of this is that sometimes the best thing you can do, it isn't to take kidney flush or liver flush or things like that, is just clean up your diet and start there. And that often gets a whole lot of things going.
That might put Dr. Schultz out of business.
That'd be okay. No, I mean, people will still need those products.
Yeah. Because are you familiar with him?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I use other brands, but I'm very familiar with him, yeah. So,
who will he put out of business? Who?
Oh, Dr. Schultz does a lot of detox remedies. No, not Scholl's, but he makes enzymes and detox remedies and cleanses and things like that. Yeah.
That's where he makes all his money, organic herbs and stuff.
Yeah.
I had a friend in Europe that works with the herbal and detoxification, and she gave to her dog for detoxing him, and the dog died. Mm-hmm. And she said that because it's thin up kind of the blood so much that there is like other side of the things also.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there are things, if she used a human remedy, there are some, like dogs don't do well with chocolate and onions, but we eat chocolate and onions and don't get sick.
No. She knew about that.
Knew about it, okay.
She was like,
yeah. Well, and yeah, I mean, these are, one of the things that happens too, and again, I'm saying this not to be worrisome, but just let me finish this one thought. We tend to store store toxins in our fat.
Yeah.
And so if, a couple of people have said, I changed what I ate, I started losing weight. Often what happens is if you start losing a lot of weight, you free up a lot of toxins. Mm-hmm. And the problem often in the body, it isn't just that the toxins are there, the body's systems for getting rid of things aren't working very well. Yeah. And that's why they build up to begin with. So you've got to, so when I say detox remedies, I'm not talking like Dr. Schultz's stuff, I'm talking more things that just open the drains, keep things moving out. But one very, I'm not giving away any secrets here, but people remember Jerry Garcia?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, do you remember how he died?
Heroin overdose.
No.
Drug overdose?
No. He basically died of heart failure. He was in a relationship with a young woman. He was very enamored of her, had gained a lot of weight, weighed like 300 pounds or something, and decided, I'm going to just get myself in shape. Oh. And he set about to lose a lot of weight, and he did lose a lot of weight,